Hello guys, whenever I hear all this our administration talk about poverty alleviation program, one thing always come to my mind because these people have been using this kind of a thing just to collaborate the remaining money wey we get. Yes, because it's a way of collaborating our money. I could remember during Jonathan time, he introduced Shopee the moment he removed subsidy as well, if we can remember. With that program, I don't know if really that program achieved the aim of introducing it that time. Buhari on his own, for him to also alleviate poverty, according to him, he said he's going to alleviate poverty from Nigeria. I mentioned number of people he will alleviate poverty from. You understand me? And he also said that he will pay 5,000 to people, which they never did until the administration ended. And this particular administration has come on board, and also they have appointed Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Just watch this woman and also hear the programs. They are just good in speaking English, and making plans that they will not follow. They are telling us that they will use local government, they are use pastor, they're going to use traditional rulers to reach to the poor of the poorest. But the question you should ask yourself, are they really going to do this? After they will tell us that they don't have the accurate number of Nigerians that needed this money, but they have the Ministry of National Population Census. What is their work in Nigeria? That is not my problem. My problem is, are they going to really achieve this particular program they're talking about? Are they going to do this particular thing, or just to speak big grammars? And at the end, nothing will be done. They will just collaborate all the money that they have mapped out for this particular program. You are talking of palliative and other things. Just watch what the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs got for Nigerians and the way she thinks she can achieve it in this particular administration we are for now. As I'm watching this video, try to share it, like it, comment, and follow my page if you're not following me. We are watching. P2B is coming. All eyes on the judiciary. We move.
All right, welcome back. Well, we've got Dr. Betta Edu, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, as well as Dr. Dakpo Obire, President, Good Leadership Advocacy for Africa. Good morning, both of you. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, Dr. Edu, when people read the description of your ministry, people will assume different things in terms of what to expect. So perhaps we should just start by asking you to tell us, what does your ministry categorically entail?
Okay, I think first we had a Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is putting lots of emphasis on the SDG, achieving SDG by 2030, and that's why he changed the name of the ministry and the mandate of the ministry from Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. I'm sure you know the number one SDG goal is that we should be able to eradicate poverty by 2030. And so his target is that he should be able to eradicate that in Nigeria, because we signed on to that. We can't go any lower than that. And that's why the ministry has been changed. So there'll be a lot of focus on humanitarian services, which is really needed by different Nigerians who have been displaced, who are going through some humanitarian crises, whether man-made or natural disasters. And of course, we need to address very heavily the issue of poverty alleviation. And so that's really where the mandate of the ministry lies. It's like the flagship ministry that's supposed to provide succor for Nigerians.
How do you plan to approach that?
Okay, so presently now we are working on our the full detailing of all our action plan on what we've been doing, that we'll be doing. The agenda has been set already by Mr. President in his action plan when he said he's going to be increasing the social nets for Nigerians, creating jobs, both skilled and unskilled, moving us really from a certificate economy into a skilled economy. Of course, eradicating hunger, because that's one of the key issues around poverty. And then he's going to be working on the educational sector. So when you have cash transfers, conditional cash transfers, they are attached to conditions. Conditions like a poor family must ensure that their children go to school, so the cash transferred to you is for the education of that child, and then government intervenes to ensure that the child can go to school, afford to have nutrition while in school, and then have all they require to thrive in school. So there are different levels to it. For the humanitarian angle, we'll be doing a lot, bringing in some innovation. One of it, which I would want to state today, is the Humanitarian Trust Fund, where we'll be mobilizing resources from across board. We would, as government, put our resource into that central purse. We will get the development partners to invest in it. The private sector, just like what we saw during the COVID pandemic, where private sector stood up to the challenge through the COVID, and they came all together to support. They'll be coming into the humanitarian space really, really very large. And then we'll be talking to different countries, bilateral agreements, and of course, individuals and businesses that are ready to support this cause. So it's a whole full package, and it will be unveiled and launched in a couple of weeks from now. And then Nigerians can have the very fine details of what they expect to see from the ministry.
Well, I wasn't certain whether to say congratulations to you or to say good luck. Because you do know. Exactly, because I'm sure that you, of course, appreciate the amount of work that that lies ahead of you. You have spoken in the past about lifting 133 million Nigerians out of poverty. Even though some people will say that those figures were talking about people who are multidimensionally poor. Sure. So it is rather broad, so to speak. Do you have a category of, I mean, you've talked about hunger. I mean, those who are, facing, food shortages. But do you have a category of people, and have you been able to settle on a more definitive figure of the number of people whom you're targeting in the first phase of some of your programs?
So that's been worked out now, but the very first thing which we are starting almost immediately is the verification of the social register. I'm sure for a couple of days and weeks, we've been going back and forth with the Nigerian Governors Forum and several other interested parties saying the social register is okay, it's not okay. The people who are truly poor are not on the list. There's some political influence to it and the rest of it. So we're going to first carry out a full verification of the social register to ensure that truly it's the poorest of the poor, those who deserve to be on that list, that are on that list. And then from there, we will now create the different beneficiaries category. So those who will be benefiting from the hunger intervention, the zero hunger intervention, those who will be benefiting from the educational intervention, those who will be benefiting from the skilled job and job opportunities. We'll also in the humanitarian sector be creating humanitarian jobs. So if you have followed or worked with some of these UN agencies and the rest of them, you see that they have short-term contracts for jobs. So if there's a humanitarian crisis at point A, they immediately hire both skilled and unskilled persons to go and handle different aspects of the humanitarian response in those locations. And so we'll be preparing a protocol that can easily give guidelines to those who will be hiring for 3 months, for 6 months, for 1 year, maximum 2 years on contract basis to go and attend. So all of those are ways in which we hope to really get the jobs out.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about that register. I know the governors did say, even at NEC, that it lacks integrity. They're not going to use it, so they discarded it. So are you saying that, you're going to use that same register yourself?
So, like I said, we are going to verify and update, and we're going to work with the governors so that they can own it. We're going to work with those at the local government so they can own it. One of the challenges which they raised was that they were not involved in the process of really getting the poorest of the poor. As a country, we have to have ownership of whatever data that we are bringing out from the grassroots. So the local government people must be involved, the governors must be involved, traditional rulers must be involved, and even the religious rulers should be involved. So we own this data to say, yes, indeed, these are poor people in our communities. We know them. These are human beings, not just numbers and names, but they are human beings. We can identify them, and this is what we believe we're comfortable working with.
Do we then expect that probably with time, maybe sooner rather than later, NEC will backtrack and say, okay, now we accept the register?
Once you work with them, they would accept it because it's their own product now.
Because, I mean, some of them we spoke to say, look, we couldn't even identify people on that register.
So that's
there's no one that they can ask or check and say this is valid. So it was dumped. So you're giving us that notice now that, yes, they will get back to that register and that it was your ministry will use eventually.
So we would go back with them, verify, remove, update, and then bring it back. So it's now owned by Nigeria, both at the national, at the state, at the local government, and even in the community. So it's our own, we own it. And then we can boldly say, we know these people, these are the poorest of the poor, and whatever interventions are coming as part of the social safety net, these people truly deserve to be part of it.
So will you be distributing palliatives to your ministry?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Like we had already said, one of the pillars which we'll be working on is ending hunger. That's Zero Hunger Project. And for this, we are going to actually be moving out palliatives all the way down. The president has already started working with the governors so that he can at least cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal, which just happened. And you can see that across the various states, even though there are some challenges, people are beginning to get some relief, both financially and in terms of food commodities.
Well, Dr. Berry, I know you've always spoken about teaching people how to fish and giving them fish in terms of how to apply this. So is this clear to you that clearly this plan is well spelled out and it will deliver?
Well, I can say the government at the moment going in the right direction. First of all, you must understand that poverty is something that has become endemic in this country, even Africa, across Africa, not just Nigeria. Nigeria is not the only country that is facing what we are facing today. But then, if you have the right programs in place, you will be able to drive these things, and the expected result will come out. But from all the plans that the government has put in place, and now we have ministers. Because all this while, it was just the president, the permanent secretaries and others running the affairs. But now there are people designated to take care of different aspects of the economy. So it's going to trickle down. And we believe that by the time the programs are well executed, because that's the problem. That's the problem. Yes, they can be fine programs, they can be fine designs, fine arrangements, but when it comes to implementation, sometimes we have a different feedback.
Do you think we'll have a credible platform to execute that at the moment?
Yeah, like the minister just said, right? Because if you look at what happened during the COVID, you look at what happened concerning the palliatives, to the extent that some of them were hoarded. They were hoarding the palliatives, and this triggered the anger of the people to go into warehouses. We saw what happened. But at this time, I think the government should be more proactive in doing things, and they should organize it in a way that the people that this palliative are targeted to should get these palliatives, not another avenue of jamboree for some people. So I think the minister, from all she has said, I can feel it from my own part that yes, she's ready.
Yeah, and part of those benefits of the palliative.
No. I'm not. The palliative is not going to get to me. Yeah. But then it's not. I'm not looking forward to receiving anything. But I have people back in my community that need palliative.
But Dr. Edu, when you talk about lifting 133 million people out of, that is huge. So is lifting them out of poverty just about giving them palliatives?
No.
Because at what point would you then say, okay, we have lifted these people out of poverty, whatever number?
Good. So the first thing I would want to state here is that we will be very transparent and accountable to Nigerians. That's a promise I give on my honor, on the honor of the president. We'll be very transparent to Nigerians. And so what we have done, we'll say we have done, and everyone will see that we have done it. What we have not done, we'll say we have not done it. And like I said, it's going to be in a phased manner. So the target is 2030 to lift this number of persons out of poverty. And like she stated very clearly, it's multidimensional. So there's some which the poverty is in terms of food, and that will be provided. There's some which the poverty is in terms of access to basic services like healthcare. Some it's in terms of education, and the rest of it, no job, unemployment. So it's multifaceted, and then we would be working with it as such in phases to achieve results. Now, we like he was trying to say, we have learned from lots of mistakes in the past. In the last couple of days, we've been reading and really analyzing and reviewing different poverty alleviation programs in Nigeria, and why did it not meet the target they're supposed to meet, and what can we do differently to meet these targets. Even the issue he raised during the COVID period, right, where he said they had issues with palliative, getting to the people who truly should have them. These are all challenges. How can we now work in such a way that we don't have things stored up anywhere, but they are moving directly from manufacturers or marketers to the people who should benefit from them? I remember when I was young, living in the UK, they used to deliver milk in a white gallon. I can remember that, to the doorstep. So we didn't have to gather anywhere to get anything. It could be delivered to our people where they live, even down in the remote areas. And it's not about palliative. Palliative is just one little bit of it. There's a whole lot. I mentioned the educational sector. I mentioned job creation, both skilled and unskilled. I mentioned bringing people into fabrication academy, micro, small, and medium enterprises. These are all parts of the intervention to really elevate poverty. So it's a broad range, but we'll be launching it, and we'll be telling figures and the numbers which would fall in each category, so that Nigerians can know what to hold us accountable for and the timeline for which we want to deliver on it.
All right, let's bring in our colleagues in Lagos.
Chamberlain. Well, Dr. Edu, I really don't envy, what you have to do right now, being Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. There are those who would say the social register that you're talking about, for instance, there are those who would say it's the only reason that the government and the governors are saying they're not going to be part of it, or they don't want to use it, or it's not authentic, is because they are not the ones, that came up with it. Having had an interview with, someone who ran the NASCO, the National, Social Register, Social Safety Coordinating Office under the Office of the Vice President in the previous administration. It talked about the fact that, look, it was an extremely rigorous process, which was funded by the World Bank, and that both the governors at the time and the local government chairman at the time were consulted. In fact, he said they went down to the communities and that the list wasn't written by anyone. It was determined by the people in the community, the exact same things that you are saying, that you need to be able to verify. And it is down to the very, very, depth of the community. So to those who are saying that it is because some people, maybe some governors, weren't part of the process, that is why they are questioning the authenticity of it, or how would you be tackling that one? Added to the fact that you said something, another, pundit has said in a civil society organization, that there is the register and then there is a beneficiary list. The register is what we are talking about now. But then there is a beneficiary list, which is sometimes drawn up by politicians. How are you going to navigate these in a way that perception does not undo the good intentions that you have?
So, truly, like I had stated earlier on, the list was done. That's the social register was done, and they had support from the World Bank, like I have been briefed, right? And we are not saying that we're throwing away that work, all of that work. What we're saying is that we're going back with the governors and the local government chairman and those in the community to say, okay, these are the names on the register that we have right now. Are they verifiable? If they are, then we show it to the governors and his team to say, these are the people, they're actually poor, and it's verifiable. And so we can run with this. Or, of course, it's also a dynamic list. So some persons who were there yesterday might not qualify to be there today. So it's kind of like a housekeeping, a cleanup of the data. And then we all come out with it, accepting that we are part of this and we are good to go. Now, the point is, the beneficiary list cannot and will not be separate from the social register. So the beneficiary list is a subset of the social register. So we have to categorize which part of this social register or which persons within the social register qualify for this intervention, which person qualifies for this intervention. There are some interventions that will say women only, 70% women, disabled only, this only. So you have to, within that social register, get out the beneficiaries that fit into that category, and then we attend to them. But once we accept that this is the social register, I think we'll be good to go. Remember that the World Bank intervention of over $800 million is pending, just based on the fact that the governors and indeed the ministry are unable to agree on what the social register should be. So we should quickly get that going. These are low-hanging fruits that we can achieve in a few weeks to months, and then we move on to more complex interventions which we intend to roll out.
You know, Dr. Edu, it would be nice to know the figure on this social register. Either it's the beneficiary list or it's the entire register itself. I wonder if you can put a figure to it, so that we'll know whether it matches with your target of bringing 133 million people out of poverty, or that is just a target that will be broken down according to whatever strategy that you have to bring that number out of poverty. And then again, the governors, during their one of their NEC meetings, questioned the social register, and we have seen that following the announcement of the 5 billion naira palliative, that they have chosen to administer this palliative. So will your ministry be working with the governors and the administration of the 5 billion naira palliative, or you comment on your own program of action under your ministry?
So, like I told you, the present arrangement which the governors are carrying out was a quick intervention by Mr. President to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. That was just a one-stop quick intervention. Right now, we're going to have a properly well-planned, fully expanded program to reach out to every state, and we will be working with the states. So we're not just going to be acting like federal government in isolation in our own silos. We'll be working with the governors, we'll be working with the local government chairman, we'll be working with everyone to see full implementation of it. Remember, Nigerians actually live in those communities, they live in those states, and they live in those places. And we'll also be working with other key stakeholders, like members of the National Assembly, to be able to get down to the grassroots. I mentioned the traditional rulers, I mentioned the religious rulers. These are key stakeholders that have been identified, and we'll work with them on it. We're also giving support to what the governors are doing presently across the states. But like I said, this is just an immediate relief for now. A full, elaborate program from short term to medium and long term will be laid out very soon.
Okay, I'm not sure if you've responded to this, but someone wants to know, do you have specifics in terms of are you targeting low-income earners? Any specific thing in that regard?
Oh, sure, we are. We have, of course, the criteria for poverty, which has been defined clearly, right? And then extreme poverty, which has also been defined as under $2.15. It used to be $1.95 per day. Anyone living below that is said to actually be in that category. So having this definition, whether the low-income earner falls within it, they are part of that social register. And that's why we're going back to verify.
Okay, so we'll be looking forward to a lot of that because it's something that, don't forget the humanitarian component as well.
Yes.
It's huge because we've talked about that several times on the program, how some things need to change because when it happens to lots of Nigerians, they don't know who to call. Just even when they distribute some of this, they don't get it. You know, they move them to a particular place and that is it. Nobody comes back to all of them. So we're hoping your ministry will revisit that and have something that they can latch onto for the longer term.
So I'll just add on this, right? One of the things which we'll be doing is putting out those humanitarian lines.
Okay.
So wherever you are, you can immediately get across to us, text messaging, whatever, and it's be toll free.
Okay, so we'll bring that information to Nigerians. As we progress, Dr. Betty Adu is the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. We've also had Dr. Dapo Obiri, President, Good Leadership Advocacy for Africa. Thank you both for coming on.